let's start with how you feeling. How's it going?
Going good. Well, right now here in New York, I'm in upstate New York. It's hot and miserable and humid. So I hate this time of year with the extreme heat and humidity of August. So aside from that, I'm doing good. I was very excited to see yesterday the video was being received really well. So I'm overall pleased with releasing another record. I always consider it a blessing to be able to release another piece of new art and music. And
Sure.
I'm doing good. Just hanging in there like everyone else. We have a crazy world right now. So
Yeah, sure.
Everything's a mess.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing well, and that's pleasing to hear. So you're 51, I think, which is the same age as me. So I'm interested to know. I would imagine that some of our earliest kind of music influences would probably cross over, but obviously you were brought up in Brooklyn. I'm over in Wales in the UK, so slightly different kind of music that was happening around the time that you were forming your tastes. What was the first kind of music that you got exposed to that made you want to be a musician?
Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, so British bands. Interesting.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, actually, like the first actual piece of vinyl I had was like a 45 of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And then again, British. So I at a young age I got exposed to hearing. I heard bands like kids playing Foreigner and Led Zeppelin, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But Black Sabbath really drew me in.
Yeah, cool. And what about early music, your early music talent? Because obviously you're a multi-instrumentalist. What came first? Was it the drums first, guitar?
Well, it was the drums, because I really wanted an electric guitar first, but I didn't get it. And my parents wouldn't get it for me. So I finally convinced them to buy me this little drum set, really, used Sparkle kind of kit. So it was like about 11. Mm-hmm. And so I started playing the drums. And of course, I loved the drums and I loved all the grooves and stuff. And I had started getting into lessons and things. And I ended up, I was playing in some local bands in the neighborhood, trying to play covers and, bands that a bunch of 13, 14-year-olds would sound like, So it was the drums first. I got into then finally getting a bass and a guitar later on when I actually was in Typo Negative because, Peter heavily influenced me and I wanted to learn also how to play stringed instruments and play bass and play guitar. And
yeah.
So it was a little later on when I got into that stuff and started playing in the privacy of wherever I was. And it wasn't anything that was outgoing, but I was starting to come up with ideas and learning how to write, I guess riffs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it progressed from there where when I was in Life of Agony and it was the second album called Ugly where I got to basically almost on every song contribute music and riffs. So that was my first exposure of getting music ideas out and printed onto an album. And I really liked it and I kept on going from there. Then there was a point in my life where I took a big break from music due to other poor choices. And then, in the early 2000s, resumed again writing music, but as a drummer. So I would write music for, projects that I was involved with, but I would play the drums in that project. And it didn't come till, early 2009 where I came up with the idea of creating, I came up with the name, A Pale Horse Named Death. And I started recording music on my laptop and I started just singing out, coming up with melodies. And after dealing with so many unsuccessful situations with other singers and other projects and things, and how crazy some people can be. I was like, well, I'm going to write music that's going to work with my ability, and I never claimed to be some kind of professional singer or even professionally coached singer. I did at that time get advice from Keith Caputo at that time, who was a trained vocalist and gave me a lot of pointers. So I took a lot of those pointers and stuck with stuff like that. And it just progressed from there, where like in anything, when you practice and do it over and you throw yourself into the wolves and into the fire, you sink or swim, and you just got to like get through it. And then once you start getting comfortable with that idea of being in the front and belting it out in front of people and you start worrying less and less about being rejected, because that was my biggest battle.
Yeah.
I was always like, even in the old days, I always was like, yeah, everyone's a bathroom singer. Everyone sounds good in the natural reverb of a tiled bathroom.
Yeah.
But, it took a lot of, I guess, courage to get up in front of an audience and it was funny because I didn't even have, like, Pale Horse Named Death was just a project idea where there wasn't even a band. It was me. And then I got together with my friend Matt Brown, and when he heard the stuff, he was like, we got to do something with this, and he liked it a lot. So we became this little team, this duo, and we made the first and second record. Me as a multi-instrumentalist, and like him and other guitarists would do guitar solos. First record was Bobby Hamble, was a guest appearance. Second record was when Eddie Heedles came into the picture, so it would be Eddie and Matt, or Bobby and Matt, that did the guitar solos, but everything else I played, including bass, so and melody guitar and rhythm guitar and whatever, all that stuff. So I was asked at the time, the current agent that was handling Life of Agony's bookings was like, hey, do you want to do a show? Because I can get you on this show in New Jersey, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, who is it? Well, you'd be opening up for Monster Magnet. I'm like, no shit. I had 6 weeks. I said, when's the show? He said, oh, it's 6 weeks away. I'm like, 6 weeks? I don't even have a band together. I don't even have a band. And I had to, like, all of a sudden get into the idea of playing guitar, singing in front of people. And I will say that first show, it was pretty obvious I was nervous, but you gotta walk on that bed of nails and get to the other side to mark it down as an experience and learn from the life lessons. So, and that's how it started. But I also liked it. And then as I got comfortable, I really started enjoying, in between all the doom and gloom and depression of the songs themselves, I always liked provoking the audience, making them laugh, cracking some jokes, bringing a little bit of of the Brooklyn twang into the environment, which everybody seems to love overseas, and just crack jokes and talk to people, from the stage real quick, and I kind of started coming into my own with just being comfortable and just realizing that that was one of the places where I could just be myself, and actually no one was judging me in a negative way. It was actually they enjoyed my entertainment, and that I was a funny guy, and we went from there, little by little. We did a tour here, we did a tour there, and it just, like anything, practice. So every time I did a show, I was learning more and more and more about what not to do or to do in a live environment when you don't have the right sound or monitors, or you can't hear yourself. You start developing these techniques through experience that even lessons can't even teach you. You just have to do it. Mm-hmm. And every time would always be a unique, interesting moment on stage where it's, okay, well, how's it going to sound today on this stage, and some nights would be great sounding and it would be easy. Then some nights were tougher sounding stages, or monitor engineers that didn't really understand exactly what I was looking for, so it would be tough with communications maybe at times in foreign countries. But these are all learning experiences that hone you and make you a better all-around performer. That can go with the punches, roll with it, because that's what you got to do. You can't be too serious where it's like you got to have it everything perfect. It's not going to be perfect. You just got to learn to go with it and just do the best you can, and just keep in mind that people are seeing a different point of view from the other side. So everything you are going through, they don't know about. So, and that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. Cool. I was fortunate enough to see you at the Damnation Festival that you played in Leeds a couple of years ago, which was quite a show. From what you've just said, no one would actually, having watched that show, have had any thought that was under a decade since you'd first stepped up to lead the band like that. So it came across very well. Yeah, It's one of the highlights of that festival for me, because I thought it was just a brilliant show.
Nice.
Great. So obviously when the debut album came out, when Hell Will Follow Me got the reception that it did, because it's a great first album for any band, but for you as well. Was that the justification that did you feel that was the kind of justification that you needed to continue the response, or was that not an issue for you?
No, it definitely was a form of justification. Hearing back that people were liking it, and that some magazines were liking it, and the interviewers were liking it, and I was just kind of blown back, because I was like, well, here I am. I was always behind the drum set. Nobody really would see me, and then all of a sudden, here I am. I put out some music that I hear in my head, and I saw that people liked it. And then it started becoming some form of something that they could relate to. And then I had no idea that Die Alone was going to strike such a chord with people. And I felt really fortunate and glad that I actually went that route and put out a record. Again, I didn't know what was next. I didn't know, and mind you, it is always a labor of love. I don't make a lot of money from it. So it was great to then have some kind of validity to actually give it a shot with a second record, and then we progressed to work on a second record. And it was very again, with the amount of people that are out there trying, and the amount of bands that we have, every year it's like another million bands. There's so much competition. There's so many band names, so many titles, so much music. It's a thick soup of stuff to navigate to try to stand out a little bit. So again, I considered myself, here's this drummer that's known for being a drummer. I considered myself, even to this day, fortunate in that people are. There's some undying support that really like and love what I do. And I didn't know that, me putting depression down on paper, or me putting these dark thoughts on paper, would receive such a response that, people telling me that how the music relates to them, or the words relate to them, and they take it into their own situation and it saves them, or, that's to me probably the greatest reward of all. Hearing stories about how the songs touch people in a manner that helps them maybe avoid disaster, personal disaster, or suicide, shall we say,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an amazing thing, music, how it touches so many people in different ways, but always seems to help people. We got this far without mentioning the pandemic, but obviously it's kind of inevitable when we talk about the new album. And obviously you've not long released The World Becomes Undone when the world actually locked down. So you were kind of, I suppose, still in some respects trying to get that out of your system to a certain extent when you found yourself in a position of the pandemic. So where were you in terms of plans for the new album when the world went a bit upside down? Were you already looking at, I'm assuming you were always writing, but were you already planning a new album at the time, or is it something that's been kind of pushed a little bit because of the way the world has turned around?
It was around January of 2020, and there was some internal issues in the band going on, and I was like, I ain't going anywhere right now. And then we started seeing on the news a little bit of this talk about the virus from China.
Yeah.
And I was already in my head thinking, well, I think I want to make another record. I don't think I want to wait a long time because again, you know it, 50. Like I was in 2020, I was approaching 50.
Yeah.
So to me, that was like, oh boy, we're at the, it's only downhill after 50, and
Yeah.
so I said, I'm not going to sit around and be 55 when I put out another record. If I'm going to put out another record or write more music, I should do it in my spare time now. So I had already had like futzed with like some ideas, sketches, recording some parts that were like loosely put together songs, like 2 parts, whatever, and started sketching. And then as time went on, here in New York, the governor, I think it was right at the end of March, around March 17th or 18th, I get a text from my wife, the city's, the state's being shut down.
Yeah.
Now fortunately, we don't live in the city, and I haven't lived in the city in 11 years. So that was a good thing because we were away from the real center of shit. But still, it was a statewide mandate where you only were allowed to, go out to get the essentials. All the restaurants were closed. Everything was kind of shut down.
Yeah.
Being that we were approaching, I was sketching these ideas. At the same time we were approaching, I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, wow, and my wife brought it up too, because she was there from the beginning with me when I did the first record. She's, coming up on 10 years that SPV released first album. And I was like, wow, well, it'd be cool to, have some kind of commemoration to the title, hell, with the word hell. And that was already floating in my head. And I actually had the title like right at the very beginning. And I was like, well, what everybody's going through with all these deaths going on in Italy and New York, and people losing their jobs or getting shut down from their jobs, and kids, including my kids, being shut down from school, everybody cooped up in a house for months on end. And I was like, everyone's experiencing some form of hell on earth in one way or another.
Indeed,
and, people were telling me, like, you had some kind of prophetic vision the year before saying, calling your album When the World Becomes Undone. Because a year later, the fucking world fell apart. And I said, well, hell on earth. It's a little bit, it's a little bit typical. It's predictable. A 9-year-old could come up with this title, and so I felt, let's see what we can do here. And I said, well, let's me being always interested in always the dark things and biblical things and title. I said, well, let's look into Latin. Let's do some phrases in Latin.
Yeah.
So I did a couple of phrases, but the phrase, I did. Hell on earth. Well, hell on earth. It translated came to infernum in terra, and the way it looked spelt out looked so evil to me and dark, and just provoked such curiosity of the dark side and misery, and it just rang a bell, and it just sounded so much more intelligent and just more clever, and yet it meant this. And so here was my commemoration of the 10-year anniversary. And so that kind of gave the fuel of, okay, well, this is the title. I think, I said on the last few years, I've been saying I wanted to lean even more towards darker subject matter, darker visual. And that's kind of where I leaned towards. And I kind of wrote I came up with a bunch of sketches, not even like lyrics. I had some random ideas and titles and stuff, but I'm the kind of writer that doesn't force myself to sit there for weeks on ends forcing to write. Like, like some guys are like, well, we got to sit down and we got to hunker down and write a record right now. and they're gonna force a freaking giant piece of shit out of their ass, because I am a true believer, and I know this from experience from other bands I've been in. When you sit there in a situation and you force riffs and ideas and trying to make stuff on, like, it never comes out as good. It really has to just be a natural thing that just happens when it happens. So I had a bunch of sketches, but then I walked away. I got involved in one of my other projects with a muscle car that I had gotten. I spent the whole summer working on this car. I didn't pick up the guitar for 3-4 months. And I just walked away. I was like, I walk away, I'll come back to it. I know it'll. And then, sure enough, then in September, October, the light bulb went back on in my head, because something to do with the winter and the fall that really inspired me to write. And it was like basically from October to November, it was like boom, like 4 songs got done and came out of me. And then all the soundscape ideas started coming to me, and then all the lyrics started coming to me as I would listen to the material. So I was basically writing and recording as a long session, the whole process. And I had contacted SPV, my A&R guy, around November, and I said, hey, look, I've been working on material. I think I want to put out another record soon. And I said, what would be an ideal delivery date for you? And he told me, well, April 1st. I'm like, okay, I think I can do that. And actually, I delivered ahead of schedule, because I was done with vocals and everything by the early March. We started mastering with Applebaum, and he was in LA. He mastered the record. So by the end of March, I sent the record over to SPV Long Branch Records, and at the same time, the beautiful part was, over the winter, I hooked up with a new artist named Kelvin Duran in England. I'm sorry, Ireland. Dublin, Ireland, and that was another blessing in disguise, because I did go to the artist that did the first 3 album covers, but for some reason they declined, and I was like, okay. You want to decline? That's fine. I kind of was feeling like maybe in the back of my mind it was time for a change anyway, but I still wanted to give the first option to that artist, since they had done 3 albums with me. But I also was getting a little tired of the similar look and colors, so I wanted to change things up. I was like, enough's enough with the horse on the cover, or the horse head. Everyone knows it's a fucking horse, like, I need something fresh, I need something different. And so when Kelvin heard the title, he went off sketching, and he got so inspired by the title that he started sending me rough sketches of the cover, and I sat on it for a couple of days, and I was like, this is fucking great. I was like, you know what, this is going to awesome. I really like the idea of having this kind of like somewhat biblical figure, yet demonic type of figure, with like he's holding a book, which could be like a Bible or something, but it has a little horse shield on it. He did, and at the same time he was holding a cross, but it was upside down, but it had the horseshoe on the other end. And it had he had these like villager apostle looking characters around him. Some scared, some in awe and enamored by the being, and I just was like, oh, this is cool. It's different. It's fresh colors, and then all these other things got incorporated into the rest of the layout, which was great, and it turned into a great working situation that I had with him, and he did a fantastic job, and he really just gelled with all the ideas really well, and it all happened honestly in a year's time, and all the material is, in my eyes, super fresh, super, like in the now, in the present. The other thing that I did was I did change. I actually produced, engineered, and recorded the album myself, completely myself, because I was dissatisfied with the previous album, with the production, where I shared the mixing duties. I let somebody else mix and handle the engineering duties, but I was dissatisfied with it, and that was one of the things that bothered me about that record. as well as me being a little bit in a rush at that time, and I had brought out like material that was just sitting on my drive for years. And so that ended up kind of like, I guess, maybe not being up to par the way I like things. So to me, this record was kind of me making it up to myself as an artist of stepping everything up again and bringing it up to where we need to be level wise and sound wise, and that's how it all came to fruition. The beautiful part is because I'm a multi-instrumentalist and I do everything on the records, the pandemic didn't hinder me from making the record because the studio was over my garage in my house, and I just would go to town at my own convenience whenever I had the time, because again, I'm a father with 3 kids and I have a wife and I have all these all this property I have to take. I have a lot of responsibilities. I don't just sit there playing guitar, smoking weed all day. I wish I could, but I don't smoke weed anymore either, So those days are kind of done. It's like time to put on big boy pants, Everyone thinks I'm living in some rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll world. No, I'm not. It's I'm daddy, and I'm a husband, and I love working on cars, and I love working on my projects. I have to be involved in many different things because I know how to do a lot of things, and I consider myself actually one of the last of the Renaissance men in this country over here, because most younger guys don't know how to do shit. I do everything. I'm the plumber, the electrician, the mechanic. I'm the landscaper. I can do a lot of things, and I've always liked it. I always was in this frenetic pace of justifying my existence on this planet. Like if I sit around like some people do, it's like, for me, it's like idle hands is the devil's work. I'm only going to get in trouble if I sit around. I gotta keep my mind busy, otherwise I'm going to dwell into bad stuff, and I'm going to want to look for trouble or something. I don't know. I get fidgety and bored, and so I keep myself busy constantly in restoration projects, or and then there's that moment where I'll pick up the guitar and boom, song falls right out of me. I mean, Shards of Glass, I wrote it in literally 5 minutes, just like with the song off the first record, When the Crows Descend Upon You. Same thing happened, and that's how I know, this is a great song. When they fall out like that, it's just an incredible experience. There's no drug that can give you that feeling of euphoria, of just knowing on the spot, I just came up with a great verse and chorus, and all I got to do is round this up, and we've got a really good song, and I love that, and that's why I feel it's important to not force any ideas. You got to know how to walk away, even if it takes months at a time. Just walk away, and then when you are, it's a mood thing for me. So if I'm in that mood and I happen to pick up the guitar at the right time, at the perfect time, all of a sudden, we have things brewing again. So believe it or not, I actually just recently futzed around with a sketch that I've been going to and coming back to in my workshop, in my recording workshop here. I already have my mind on wanting to over the winter laying out the next map, because I feel like as I get older, I just want to try to, if I can afford the time, to put the time into it, to put out as much music as possible, because even though we have this pandemic, I'll be honest, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. There's bands out there that are like hopeful, they keep on announcing tours, and then 2 weeks later they cancel them. We have all this bullshit restrictions and day-to-day changes with this pandemic and virus, and then you have all these different variants, and to be honest with you, I think it's just all, they're all big governments running with it because they just found the perfect opportunity to control everybody globally. It's a global reset, and they don't have to lift one gun or rifle or military action to control millions of people now. Now all they got to say is, we've got a new fucking variant, so put your mask on, stay home, shut up, do what we tell you. Australia's doing it right now. Look at all the rioting now that they're dealing with, because, and then I just, New Zealand, they had one guy, COVID positive, and they shut the whole country down instantly.
Yeah.
It's understandable. Everyone's terrified of this situation. I don't know why the world is not don't unite and hold China responsible, because honestly, their negligence is what caused this. So, and then they allowed it to spread around the way it did. They didn't warn nobody. They didn't tell nobody. They just let people fly to Europe, from Europe to America. And then, it pisses me off.
Yeah.
And they're really taking advantage of people, thinking everyone is really stupid, because they feed all the people are so wrapped up in social media, and social media is really controlling people and feeding people so much bullshit, and so a lot of dumb people believe it, and they know that, and that's why government is hand in hand with social media, and they all work together, because they found this new way of feeding weak minds with all this bullshit.
Yeah,
they just outright lie to our faces. It's outright. What's going on in Afghanistan is outright deceiving, freaking lied to day to day. Over here in America, we're being lied to every day, and it's just that's got me pretty irate. But I try not to mix the two. I try not to mix music and politics. So, but despite if we are not able to get out anytime soon, or if it takes a year or 2 years, that's fine. I feel the best thing I can do, which they can't stop me from doing, not even the government, is write music. And I feel that at least the fans, if they can't see the band anytime soon, then there's music. And this new record, I feel, is going to hold people, fill that void for a while. And maybe in a year from now, I can have another one out. Who knows? We'll see.
Having spent the last couple of days listening to the album, I must say that from my point of view, it's certainly, I think you acknowledged it's a step forward from the last one. Not that the last one was a poor record by any stretch, but I know that you were unhappy with it. But this one certainly is up another level, and I still need to spend some time to really get deep with it. But it's sounding really good to me. So I think people should be really excited and will be very impressed with it when it comes out.
I've had quite a few fans write to me just from hearing the first single. That were released, writing to me or commenting saying, "Oh, this sounds way better. The last record didn't sound as good." Hey, this happens with a lot of bands. You go from record to record, and sometimes things change. Or, when it was me and Matt Brown doing the first two records, it was honestly, it was the perfect production team that we had. But then, Matt, who I still speak to every now and then, he needed to move on in life. He had goals. He wanted to, he wanted to get a house. He wanted to just, change some things in his life that, being in a band, everyone has this illusion, but when you're in a band, you're denying yourself a lot of other things in life.
Mm-hmm.
And, people have this illusion like it's always the greatest thing on earth, but if you want to make a band successful, you got to spend a lot of time away from your family. You got to spend a lot of time away from the people you love. And if you have children, you're not going to see them grow. And, everyone's constantly, they want you to tour. But when you're touring, when you come and play for them, you're only taking one night out, they're only losing one night of their life to come see you. But for you to do this tour, you're losing 6 weeks or 4 weeks out of your life not seeing your kids. And they don't make that correlation. People don't make that correlation. They just think they're seeing you that one time in London when you're on the road, and then they just go back home and go back to their loved ones and they go back to their lives and whatever. But you're out there for months or weeks, and you're going through all the grueling mishaps that happen on the road, and it is not glamorous. It is not. Again, it's a labor of love. You really got to love what you're doing to put up with all the bullshit that comes along with it, because sometimes you have unreliable promoters or people working for you that don't do the right thing, and you show up and you realize you're having a fucked show.
Yeah.
So after traveling 8 hours or 9 hours to get to that show, it's a fuck show. And you're like, well, so everything is the beautiful thing is though, music, creating music is probably the best drug in the world for me, and I know that's not going anywhere for a while unless I drop dead. Yeah.
So I know you've got another interview, Sal, so I'll wrap it up now. I just wanted to final question really is obviously with everything that you do you get opportunity to listen to much new music yourself? Do you have a keen ear for what's out there, or do you focus on
I don't really follow a lot of this new stuff that's going on. I will say this, I did get into, like 3 years ago, I got into a couple of doom bands that I really like a lot, and I'm very stingy when it comes to bringing in a new band into my listening world, because I tend to want to, if I am going to listen to music, I'll listen to the old stuff, whatever it is, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Hendrix, all that kind of stuff. Be honest with you, especially in this chaotic life, I don't listen all the time to as much music as I should, or I'd like to at times, because I'm just always busy running around. It's never a good time to blast music when you got kids. But I got into, a few years ago, I one band, Acid King, from California. I was actually on tour, and I think it was in a venue in Germany, and I heard this cool music emanating from the kitchen of the venue, and I was like, man, that sounds good. And I walked over, and it was like a cook, a chef, preparing, I guess, the dinner for the bands that evening. And I was like, dude, what is this that you're listening to? And he's like, oh man, this is Acid King, and he showed me one of the record covers and this and that, and it was like a 3-piece band with a female bassist singer. And I was like, well, this is really cool. And when I got home, I got a couple of their records off on the iTunes to check them out, and I liked them right away a lot. Then at the same time, because I stumbled upon them, then I actually threw a suggestion on the internet. I checked out Windhand, who are out of Virginia, and from the first track I heard of them, I fell in love, because again, here's this real heavy doom riff stuff with a really good vocalist singing really good melodies, a female vocalist singing really good melodies over that heavy stuff, and that's probably like my favorite combination, when you can have really good melodies and melodic material over really heavy parts. And I went out, and over the years, I got every record. I got like 4 albums from them. So a lot of times when I do put on some music, I'll actually put them on just to like change things up. And so that's really the best I can offer as far as new music that I've gotten into. These newer bands, like this crazy metal that's going on, I'm not really a fan of. I'm not really a fan of like a lot of this heavy blast beat stuff. I'm just not into it. I'm into heavy groove, deep groove, solid rock, that kind of vibe.
Cool. All good.
Yeah.
All good. Sal, it's been an absolute honour to have a chat with someone who's been in so many amazing bands and who have been part of my life for a long time, and it's been a real privilege to have a chat with you. I feel that we could talk a lot more, but you have commitments, and we all have things to do. So I'll just wish you luck, which I don't think you'll need with this cracking new album, and hopefully speak to you again, and maybe in the future we'll get to see you back over on these shores playing some of the.
I love playing the UK. So I really hope so too. I'd love to come back in a few years, or in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Hopefully when things subside, because they've made it very complicated now with Brexit.
Of course. Yeah.
Brexit has made touring Europe very expensive now, because you need 2 sets of gear and transport, and also this situation with flying, where you have to get a COVID test literally the 24 hours before you fly. Everything's complicated right now.
Yeah.
So hopefully it subsides. But I wish you a lot of safe. Be safe, and I really appreciate you taking the time out and asking me these questions.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.